committee who has been working very diligently on the Aquatic Center, as well as looking at other sports as well. And I'd like to thank you, Miss Isby, for the work that you have done, and Felicia and your committee. I know that y'all have taken some trips and looked at some other facilities and put in a lot of hours on this. So again, thank you for all you've done. This time, I'll turn it over to you, Miss Isby.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. First of all, just want to acknowledge my committee. My committee consists of Karen Ledbetter, Craig Connor, Jeff Turnage, Denise Perry, Bill Maynard, Donna Townsend, Jenny Davis, Teresa Little, and Melissa Troop. And, of course, the backbone has been our ladies here of City Hall, which consists of Felicia, Shawana, and Jamie. And then, of course, we had Trey Price along with Steve Ibbotson with us on the benchmarking trips, and then also all of our meetings. Felicia has prepared for each of you at your stations kind of an overview of what we're going to talk about tonight. We are looking at a community center that will house an aquatic center, and we're looking at the bonds that could generate up to $25 million for the park's recreation facility projects. We are also looking at, in addition to that being our top priority, if funding is available, we'll also be looking at a new soccer facility, indoor tennis facility, a community center with volleyball, basketball, pickleball, the renovation of the McGee Center and the Don Owen Center, also a mountain bike park and additional park amenities. What you have in your packet is just some colorful pictures as far as the aquatics recreational facilities. And of course, there was a comprehensive study to evaluate the feasibility of a new aquatic center in July of 2016, and it was also updated in 2021. And in looking at that information from the study, it indicates that there was 80.4% of the responses came back from households with 3 or more people. This suggests that a majority of respondents were households with children, and the characteristics of the community were also identifying in the demographics. The major respondents, we had 81.7% that favored a combination of indoor and outdoor facilities. The majority of the respondents currently use an outdoor pool at least 5 or more times a year. The majority of the respondents, which was 66.8, currently use an indoor pool less than 5 times a year. The availability of an indoor pool may be a factor to the relative low usage when compared to the usage to an outdoor pool. And a lot of that's coupled with the fact that a lot of neighbors have pools at their home that they can utilize. So that had a lot to do, I think, with those numbers. But the majority of the respondents, which was 69.4, stated that they're willing to travel more than 10 minutes to an outdoor facility. And then the majority of the respondents stated that they are willing to travel more than 10 minutes to an indoor facility. Leisure and recreation swimming is the priority of the vast majority of the respondents, and that's 87.2%. The second was usage is exercise. What we are looking at for the potential location of the community center that will house the aquatics is the South German Lane / Favre Lane, however you choose to pronounce it. That is land that the city currently owns. It's a little over 93 acres, I believe. Out of that 93 acres, there's only 19 due to it being in the floodway, and then also due to power lines being run that can actually be utilized for a building. Of course, you can still build trails, do parking lots, things like that in that area, but as far as the actual area to build in. We're talking basically 19 acres. And there are several different pictures here looking at a master plan at different ways that you could set up the outdoor aquatic center, different pavilions, parking lot scenarios, and different things of that nature. The first facility that we benchmarked was the Aquatic Center in Pine Bluff, and that is strictly indoors. That was an estimated $12 million when they built that, and that opened in 2019. It does have a small indoor play area. It does have the competition pool with 8 lanes. It has a water playground, a slide that extends outside, but it's just the exterior of it that's on the outside, and you get on the slide and you go through the outside tunnels, and then you come back in and land on the inside. There are several pictures there. When we talked to them at Pine Bluff, the new manager had just been there. I think that was his 7th day. He moved from El Dorado, and he said that typically with them, they usually have about $40,000 a year just in sponsorships. And the things that they had at Pine Bluff, he said he definitely would suggest 8 lanes for competition swimming. He also said that you would need a ramp for a therapy pool, and then also suggested having a certified pool operator on staff. He did take us into the room where they have all of the, trying to think of the best term to use, all of the mechanics to operate the pools, and it was very high-tech, and showed us several things to do and not do, but he said it was very important to make sure that you did have a certified pool operator on staff to operate the pool. After we went to Pine Bluff, we took another trip the following week or so, and we went to Clarksville, and I think Theo had mentioned Clarksville previously. Clarksville, their estimated construction of theirs was $10 million. It was both an indoor and outdoor facility, approximately 11 acres. What they did in Clarksville is they built it by their community center. So it was, you could basically go from the pool and walk right over to the community center. So they were there together. Theirs opened in 2014, and of course the community center had the basketball and also the racquetball, and they had the track similar to what we have at Dono and the McGee Center that people can walk on. The things that Clarkville said is they liked having the community center next door. They said they would encourage 8 lanes for competition swimming, and then also having a separate pump system. They said what that does is it allows you to, particularly outdoors, if one area is messing up, then you can turn that particular area off rather than having to turn everything off. So having the separate pump systems. So we left Clarksville and we went on to Rogers, which Rogers is strictly a complete outside aquatic center. It was a very, very good setup. They had it laid out such that they had the areas for like very small children separated completely from some of the other areas that older children may utilize or adults may utilize. They had a combination of many things, as you can see here. They had the slides, they had the lazy river, but again, everything that they had was completely outside. They said that the things that they would have done is they suggested plenty of storage space. They didn't have enough of that because you do have to store all of the chairs and things like that. They also said a larger concession area and also a larger area for staff. They also had the separate pump system, which he was able to turn on like the little kid area splash pad for us to look at, and nothing else there at the facility was on. And like I said, they also had separate areas for the different age groups, which made it very nice. So if you were a mother bringing your young children, you could sit right there where the young children were. If you had older children, they could do the lazy river and some of the climbing and things for the older ages. Then on that Saturday, we went to Bentonville. Bentonville, I think, probably was the most impressive, but I think it was because of a lot of the amenities that they had. Theirs was indoor as well. When you pull into Bentonville, we had Melissa Troop with us, and her children are competitive swimmers, and they have actually been to Bentonville and used that facility for competitive swimming. But when you pull into the center, it just says Bentonville Community Center. So when you walk in, you get the complete feel of a community center. You check in. They gave us a tour of the different areas that they have. It was very unique with the fact that they had an area that was just kind of a mini library, and they had done that in conjunction with the local libraries. So you could come into this library and check out books. It was kind of like a satellite library. So it was easier for people who lived in this area to check out library books, return library books, things of that nature, than to have to go further to the actual library. They also had what they call a senior room, and are active adults. So it was a room that they utilized. They said a lot of times what people would do is they would come in and have card games. They had books for adults in that area. So just kind of a common area. They also had some machines that they could use to check their body weights, things of that nature. So basically they called it their active adult room. They also, Bentonville was basically built on 2 levels, which I think was good because, you know, from an architect standpoint, you probably are going to do better as far as your costs building up as versus building out. They had several multi-purpose rooms. They showed us one of the multi-purpose rooms, and it was a room that they utilized for different type things. They did like arts and crafts in there where the young people could come in. They could do an arts and crafts class. They did CPR class that the firemen did for people to get their CPR certification. They also utilized this classroom to do babysitting techniques, to teach people to do babysitting, so very community oriented. They also took us to several other rooms that they had. They even had a room set up to do their council meetings there. They had probably more rooms than I think we would utilize due to the fact that we have our expo center, even such that people could rent the different rooms. They had one that was even set up that was very large that you could even do like family reunions, things of that nature. They had the tables available, the dishes, everything, even a commercial kitchen that could be utilized. They also had downstairs, they had a room that they used kind of as an exercise room. In fact, they had a jazzercise class that was going on. Their pool area, you walked into the pool area, and again, it was all indoor, but you walked in, they had a little splash pad area for kids to play in, and then they had the open swimming pool. In fact, they had someone in there, the parents were sitting, and someone was working with a small child showing them how to swim. Then you go through the door, and outside that door was basically the competition pool. So it was the 8-lane pool. What Melissa Troop had indicated is when they came there for a competitive swim, you would go to the back of the community center and come in those doors for the competition pool. So when the schools utilized it for swimming, when they had competitive swimming, it didn't interrupt with any of the other activities that were going on in the regular pool. They had separate dressing rooms in that area as versus the dressing rooms in the other area. So there was anybody that walked into the community center saw the community center and the pool that was available for the community. They didn't have to walk through a competitive swim situation to utilize the community center. It's inside. It is inside. So we looked at that, and like I said, that was probably the most attractive to the committee, just basically because of the way it was set up. Coming back, we gave it a week, and our committee came back together and met. And what we talked about is, based on what we had seen for those that had been on the benchmarking trip, from the individuals who had gotten input from community, what they thought would be good for us to put in a community center with an aquatic center here in Conway. So, from that meeting, what we came up with is an indoor and outdoor. They wanted the flow outside either through doors or some type of connectivity, and on the outside to have a splash pad, a slide, and a lazy river. They did like the idea of the library and the active senior area, 8 lanes for competition with diving boards, of course, a pool for recreational swimming and swimming lessons. They said that Benton has a facility that has the balcony seating, so rather than having big areas on either side, to have your seating up top to save some room to do maybe a balcony seating like Benton has, a separate entrance for the swim teams, also party rooms. One of the things that Pine Bluff noted, as well as Bentonville and Clarksville, is that people book those things to have birthday parties. So that's actually a revenue generator. And then, of course, to do some outside shade and pavilions for the activities that you have outside, to maybe do a weight room just on a small scale, and then a 0 entrance for special needs children. They did mention maybe a basketball court that could be converted to do volleyball or, of course, pickleball. Concessions, and also the lockers, and to make sure that there was plenty of storage. And in looking at some of the revenue generators we had talked about is membership, and we did get the information from Pine Bluff on their membership, and we also picked up a lot of information from Bentonville on some of the classes that they offered, what those fees were. Of course, parties, swim meets, rent from the swim teams, sponsorship, swim lessons or program cost if you ran programs, what people would pay for those, the room rentals, the concessions, and one of the things with Bentonville that we noted is the Bentonville school donated $1 million to the facility when they built the facility. And what they had told us is, even though they donated the $1 million, it still did not give them any priority over any of the other needs there in the community center. And then they also said that they get $10,000 a year from the swim teams. And I did also, Shelley had talked to me earlier this morning, and she had basically asked me about the local swim teams that we have. So I did get that information. Conway High has 50. Crocs has 75. Aqua Kids, post-COVID, was 125, so that's 250. And then Valonia also has 20 that participate in swim. And then, of course, the other things that our committee talked about was the other parks and recreational needs, which would be soccer fields, indoor tennis, and then the mountain bike trails.
Sheila, who did you say had 75?
Had 75, the Crocs. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the Crocs.
Sheila, I have a couple questions for you.
Sure.
I know you mentioned that Pine Bluff had a sponsorship or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Or do any of the other aquatic centers y'all visit have sponsorships from any
They did
entities?
not mention sponsorships.
Like Bentonville didn't from
They
Walmart
did
or
not
anybody?
mention, I'm sure they got a substantial
kind of-
amount of money from Walmart and other areas, other,
Tyson,
yes.
some of those areas. And also, did they all have lifeguards on duty at all
When
the
we went
facilities?
to Pine Bluff had a lifeguard, and we thought this was real interesting. They had 2 lifeguards, and one of the lifeguards, when we pulled up there, was outside picking up trash on the parking lot. And the other lifeguard was cleaning around the pool. While we were there during the tour, there was a lady that had got dressed, came out and got in the pool. And observing, it was kind of neat because the minute that lifeguard saw her go and get in the pool, that lifeguard left whatever she was doing cleaning and went to her station while that person was in the water. They did have the lifeguards at Clarksville. We did see, there was no one in the competition pool at Bentonville, but there was someone in the pool that evidently was just doing swimming lessons there.
Did y'all talk about a beachfront entrance going
We did,
shallow too?
we did not talk about a beachfront entrance, no.
Did you get information about how the competition pool can be used for recreational things? I mean, is it used all the time for the swim teams?
No,
swim
it's not
meets?
used all the
So-
time.
So it could be
Yes.
open for
Yes.
like lap swimming, which I
Yes,
know a lot
it
of people
could.
like to do.
Right.
Okay.
And the other thing that Bentonville provided us with is they gave us all of their information for 2019, like their attendance, their average daily attendance, the staff expenditures, the facility revenue, the programming revenue, what their utility costs were. So, yes. Well, didn't have insurance in here, but it talked about the revenue that came in, of course, from the memberships, the day pass revenue, the party room revenue, community room revenue, total facility revenue, total facility expense. So we did get that from Bentonville.
And I would assume there's still a gap.
Yes,
Between the-
yes. Anybody
And we know that, so.
Yeah, anybody that we talked to said that typically your pools are not going to make you money. Sometimes it's not even necessarily a break even. It's just a service that you provide.
Hey, Sheila, on the competitive pools, did they say typically the depthness of those, are they 7 feet deep? Or,
They
because that's what somebody
Did not
indicated to me.
say the depth. I will say that Jamie did put out RFQs. When she put out the RFQs, she got back, I think it was 40 some odd. But then I think what happens when you put out the RFQs, your architects get with a design team, so then it brings those numbers down. I have not talked to Jamie yet to find out exactly how many, but it has been, on all of the ones that we visited, we did find out who their architects were, and we have gotten, information back from basically everyone that has done that. The thing that we did find out in visiting the facilities is they were like, man, y'all are doing the great thing, coming around looking, because you don't want to just build something. And it's like what they said is if you look at the way the facilities are being built, you can see the improvements that are occurring with each one that's built later on.
Okay, I'm finna be the flying ointment. I know y'all expect this anyway. Yeah, but anyway, this is my thing about this whole situation. We are talking about all the amenities and competitive and all this, which is great. But my thing is, we talking about people can go get in their neighbor's pool and all this. It's so many people can't get in a pool. And that's what I'm trying to get to, a pool that they can get in. I understand swim teams using it and all this and that, and we have never been able to go to a pool, never. And there's so many people that's not, I'm not criticizing, that hadn't answered the survey or nothing, that wants to get in a pool. They don't have a neighbor's house they can go to. They can't go to Conway Reason, they can't afford it. I'm trying to get a pool that everybody can go to, just not for the schools and competition. Kids around here would like to go to a pool. I mean, I understand all these amenities, but they can't play in nothing but the little inflated pool. I mean, it's a lot of those kids not on the survey that I talk to that would love to go to a pool.
Are you thinking like a 5-foot deep?
No,
Like
what I'm
ball
saying, no, what I'm saying is, when we build a pool, let's keep that in mind, not the people,
Right.
not the other people in mind.
Right.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's people, we have never been able to go to a pool. I'm 72 years old. We've never been able to.
Well-
I learned to swim in the Beaver Fork Lake.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And I don't have a neighbor that I can go get in their pool. And the people on the survey, they got that, but the people that you talk to can't do that. I'm not saying we need a wading pool, but let's build a pool that Joe Blow can go to. See what I'm saying? Let's do that for once, okay?
That we will charge to go to?
Yeah, but let's don't make it so pricey doing all this other stuff that they can't go to the pool.
Right.
See what I'm saying? You add all these amenities, you're gonna have it where the people just wanna go swim, that's never swam before, can't afford to.
I know we get, the way I feel about it, we get one shot at this, and we need to try to make sure we appease most of the people. I know it won't be all of them, but we won't get another opportunity to do this again probably, and we need to make sure we include everybody, you know, as many as we can get in there, with what we're doing, and I think this is a good starting point to make sure that we capture everything for everybody that we can.
I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying, let's not forget what this is about. The people that I talk to, and I've been talking to, can't go to the neighbor's pool, because there is not one. And it's a lot of people would love to take swimming lessons, but there's nowhere to go. And if they paid to go to swimming lesson, they can't pay to get in the pool. And that's why I say if you start having all these other stuff with it, you got the price so high that only the people that can go to the neighbor's pool can go to it.
Yeah.
Well, I will say, Theo, one of the particular members on our committee, we were kind of discussing everything one day, and this kind of brought it all to heart for me. What she said is she grew up in a community where they did have a pool. And what she saw was that you had people who came together at the pool from all different races, all different religious backgrounds, all different community areas, and they came together at the pool. And I think that's what really brought it to home for me because, you know, of course, this is someone who could have probably afford to go wherever. But, you know, their concern was having something to offer to the community where you could bring everybody together in a common area. There's the mother who has 3 kids that can't afford to take all 3 of her kids to Wild River Country. You know, things of that nature. No matter what we build and what amenities we have with it, there's going to have to be some kind of cost to cover. We did get the cost from Pine Bluff, which are very reasonable. So I do think that is something that we are going to have to keep in mind going forward, that this is gonna, and I think that's why I've never used the term aquatic center. Basically, what I have said is a community center that will house an aquatic center, because that's what I see it as, a community center, to bring people together. And I think with some of the other amenities that you offer, swimming is great, but then I think, you know, for the people who live on this side of town that don't have a way to get over to the library, if they can come here and check out a library book at this facility, or if they can come here and get CPR classes, things that they don't have to drive all the way across town for, to me, that's what a community is.
I apologize for being late. I may miss some of this. And I tend to be more in line with Theo saying, I'm not opposed to building what we can build, but when you described people coming together that didn't sound to me like a competition pool. That sounded to me like a place where people come together to swim and do their thing. Again, I'm not against building what we can build, and
Right.
I've got no preconceived notions here, but the more we pack into there, the more square footage for libraries and CPR classes, that's more fair square footage we gotta cover each month operationally. And we saw the preliminary studies on this thing, it's not cheap.
No,
It's not, and it has to be affordable to the people going, either daily or monthly memberships. It's gotta be affordable to us, it can't break our budget. Okay? Now, again, I don't necessarily care where we end up. We do have one shot at it, Mary, but I think we need to make a good decision overall. Here's an anecdotal story, it's just one story that hit me just this past Sunday. At church, it was Senior Sunday, and they had one of the young ladies stand up and talk about, being a senior. And she said that she moved here in 4th grade and started going to church there, and the point was that, church helped her meet people and make friends and blah, blah, blah. But here's exactly what she said. She said, we moved here in the summer, it was the hottest summer on record, and there were no public pools. And I thought, okay. She didn't say, I want to come in December and swim inside when it's cold, or join the swim team. She goes, it was hot, I wanted to swim, I wanted to swim pool. So I think so, we need to focus on that first. Before anything else.
Well, I guess we just have to decide, do we want competitive, do we not want competitive? Because if a majority of us feel like we don't, then take that off the table.
Well,
I
I'm
mean,
not saying
and
no, but
let's
again, for you,
make
I was
it,
late, and maybe this is next, architectural design team, what are they going to design?
what they will do is they will take the information that this council sends to them. What I brought was the suggestions that came from the committee. So what we will do is we will then take the suggestions of what we want to see. Felicia said this process will be a lot like when they were looking at the emergency shelter. You can say, we want this, 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 and this. But then they come back and they say, well, can you live? It's kind of like anything else. When you're shopping for a house, you have a budget that you're going to spend on the house. You look at it and, the wife says, well, I want the mega kitchen, I want this. And then when you look at what all that costs, it's way outside of the budget. So then you have to reel back in and start cutting things. So from my understanding, that's what, and the architects basically have all done designs with pools. So basically, when we tell them what we want or what we're looking at putting in this facility, then they can reel us in and say, well, you can't do this, this is what you could do. So that's kind of,
We have, in the bond issue available to us, enough money to pretty much build any kind of aquatic community center we want. Okay, we really do. The question is, can we afford to keep doing it year after year after year? To me, this almost seems like the quorum courts issue, the animal shelter. They've got money to build an animal shelter. Question is how they fund it going on an annual basis. Okay, so again, I don't care what we build as long as we can sustain it without breaking our budget.
right,
and it can be affordable to the masses.
yes.
And that's another thing.
To me, a community swimming pool is an outdoor swimming pool where the moms are laying on recliners and the kids go to the concession stand, get them something. They're right here, teenagers are on the other end.
You have baby pools, you might have a lazy river, you might, yeah.
Yeah.
How many of these facilities had retractable roofs, Sheila? Was it just one, or was
I
it
think there was just one.
just one? This is where the design people and the architects will be of the most importance of this entire project. They're gonna be the most important people here because they will be able to show us what it is that makes the most sense. I swim at Hendricks on a fairly regular basis. I hadn't been in a week, but I swim there regularly. There's no air conditioning. You don't need air conditioning because you have a retractable roof. So in the summer,
Right.
you have summertime conditions. In the winter, you close that roof up, you've got heat pumped in, but you don't have to air condition that area. So, I mean, these people know stuff like
Exactly.
that. And so they know where they can cut cost, where they don't have to put air conditioning in, and where they have to put pool decks in, and how those pool decks have to be structured. So I mean, we can sit here all day, but the most important people in this process are gonna be the folks that are gonna design it, which leads me to my next question. How's that gonna be done? How are we gonna choose that firm or firms?
Jamie has sent out RFPs. I'm sure she'll have a report for you guys to take a look at to make your decision.
And okay, so it's gonna be turned to us then to do that?
Yes.
Yes.
Hey,
Okay.
Mayor, do
I
we still
didn't
have
have-
the, do we still have the drawings from
We
2
do.
years
I
ago?
think Steve Ibbotson has those,
I mean,
if y'all
you
like to
know,
see
and
them.
the thing is, drawing up the plans, we don't really know how much like a competitive pool component would be. I mean, that's the thing, I don't know, I mean, we've got to decide that up front. Is that what we have to do before they draw them up?
Well, your
Going back to-
architects are gonna know.
Okay, they'll know.
Yeah.
Mr. Jones, in answer to one of your questions from earlier today, if you build the pool properly and you put what's called a bulkhead in the middle of the pool, you can cut it in a couple of different pieces where you can still have competitive swimming on one end and have that swimming area where people can learn to swim on that other end.
I
And
wanna-
no, and never the two.
Can I say something, man? I'm not saying we don't need to have something that you can swim competitively in. What I'm saying is, let's not lose sight of what it's about. I mean, we don't wanna have it, build a pool that only somebody can use is for competitive swimming. See what I'm saying? We got,
Yeah.
it's people would just love to go to a pool. And if we get so much tied into the competitiveness, we might as well not build a pool for the people that can get in it. We might as well just build a pool for that.
In your perfect world, what are you?
This looks more fun to me.
Yeah, 100%
But see, which one is that? Which one is that?
with the slides.
The outdoor.
But see, that's what I liked about Clarksville, because they had one like Wild River Country outside and the pool inside. See, the kids
Yes.
could be out there playing in the Wild River Country thing. Kids, people want to get in a pool right here. People like me. No, that's
Well,
the purpose.
Conway is still I mean, everybody knows that we're a university town. We have 3 different school districts. When the college adults go back to school and when the high school and junior high and elementary kids go back to school, they get interested in school. I know the competitive swimmers in those groups will still be swimming, but the majority of them will not. And Miss Isby and I, when we first started talking about this deal, I think, in the Mr. Ledbetter's wife is on the committee too, I think everyone realizes that the first priority on this is recreation.
Yes.
And I think it may be why Ms. Smith said something about the beach, because that way you start out shallow and you can go deeper. Yeah, the little ones can get in it too.
Right.
And it goes, it graduates deeper into the older,
Yeah.
kids, and I've been to Texas, to several pools there, and most, all of them have the beachfront, they have the slides, they have the they have the dumping thing in there, I mean, it's, and they have the little rope thing you climb, a lot of activities in their
Right.
pools that I would love to see built into these, because the kids, my grandkids, the other ones love to go to Texas to play in their pools, because they're not like the pools around here. Because it's so hot down there. It's another reason why there's so many pools, but
Are you
there's
go-
so many city pools there that are great, so.
Are you gonna go down the slide, Mr. Grimes? I just want, all right.
Water slide days up there on Skyline.
Well, Karen Ledbetter and I said we're gonna take swimming lessons, so.
And I know that there's a lot of folks out there in the soccer world, because I think I've been contacted by about 25 today, and you're listening. And this is not set in stone, but I think, and I can't speak for the entire council, but there's a good possibility that if we use the money on the Aquatic Center, then the city will be able to take out a 5-year loan, that pending this council's approval, a 5-year loan for the soccer facilities.
What about for the tennis facility? Will
That's-
that go with this bond issue?
That's
or
what we got, that's what
five-year
this
financing?
group has to figure out.
Yeah.
We just got a brand new tennis facility. I think we need to, that one would be
Well,
to
we're
me put on the back burner as opposed to, the soccer complex, which is absolute crap out there.
Thank you, Mr. Pruitt.
Terrible. Tennis,
Oh,
Yeah,
the
soccer's
soccer's
gotta be-
terrible. I agree.
They do grow champion mosquitoes though.
right, exactly. That's the issue out there.
So,
It is an issue out there.
Here's the bottom line. We need to figure out what kind of aquatic community center we want, see how much it costs.
and then see what's
So much
left.
the bond issue, maybe soccer fits the bond issue too, don't the bond issue.
Yep.
So we need to find out how much we're gonna spend on aquatic, so we know.
So we have to pick a design team next, I guess, is that kind of the next step? And then clearly communicate them our priority list. And then hopefully they can design something. If we say, okay, that's too much, what can we take out?
Yeah.
You know, and work our way up from the bottom.
Are we tied into that one location?
No. It's, the reason we're looking at that location is because we own the land.
I got you.
And we've got the parking area. The other possibility would be Central Landing.
I would love to see it at Central Landing, and let me tell you why, if that's okay. I would like to see it there because there still are rumblings out there about a live performance venue that might end up in Conway. And you could use the same parking lot for both of those facilities. If you had a live performance venue, you have a parking lot, you have a swimming complex or an aquatic center or a center that houses an aquatics, whatever you want to call it. You could have all of that in one spot, and it is more centrally located, where everybody could get to it. They could ride bicycles to it, and I just,
And the infrastructure's already been updated.
And we own 40 acres there. That's all.
Yeah.
and that's another good thing, yeah.
And that's most important. I mean, you think about how many people go up and down, like, just the bike trail, if we had
Yeah.
a full on.
Oh, man, that you could get to, oh, that you could get to.
I don't think there's a better centrally located place.
I
mean,
just-
you can come from east side of town, you can come down Seymour Morgan to Ingram, you can
Absolutely.
easy in and out.
Mayor,
Absolutely.
can we have some of these, like the ball teams that are at the girls' complex and the boys' complex, can they do a day pass to come if their parents, you know, or if they're spending the night, can they come and
I don't know if Sheila,
swim and all
have y'all
that?
looked into that, Sheila, on?
We did get some rates. The one thing that they did tell us, particularly in Rogers, is that they try not to police people who are Rogers residents or other areas. But yes, most of them do have like day passes.
I mean, we would love to have done that after the ball games were over for the afternoon and do that if you're spending the night anyway.
And as far as,
Yeah, what were some of the hours of operation and months of operation? Like the one that was all outdoor, and I'm not necessarily leaning that
I
way, but did,
Don't,
because I think you
think-
could start
yeah.
it pretty early.
right, yeah. We did not get information from them on their actual hours of operation. The other thing that they had at Rogers is outside of their facility, they had a beach volleyball set up out there. And then there were also people walking along the trails while we were there as well.
Yeah, I just think of hot evenings.
Where is Rogers? Where's their facility? Is it
I'm
close to
not-
They're downtown? Or is it close to the intersection?
It's pretty much kind of in somewhat of the downtown area, but not direct downtown.
Is it by that bike park, that rail yard park, or am I?
I don't recall seeing the rail yard park.
A few people have mentioned to me they would like to
I
see
think I've got
water
the
aerobics,
address.
you know, a class of water aerobics out there, which doesn't need to be super deep, I mean, 5 feet, 4 feet. But, you know, I think we would attract a group of people that would want to exercise at that facility like that as well. But
Well-
that would be indoor.
Yeah, and
you
I
know.
think if we had an indoor component, you do have people who just like to swim for exercise, and you could still have recreation in there, and you could do some of this programming, the swim lessons, you know.
Where's that 40 located at?
you know where the Axion building is, Martin? It's that 40 that surrounds that. Yes.
And west,
That's what
the
I've been told, Mr.
actual,
Hawkins. Don't hold me to that.
the address of the Aquatic Center in Rogers is 1707 South 26th Street.
You know where that is.
I was driving through downtown yesterday, riding my bike, and I was trying to figure out where
If you were riding your bike, you probably seen the signage because they have all of the signage that points to all of the different amenities, yes.
I mean, so you can get from the interstate, all the way to the pool and to other stuff in downtown just from, a bike path. And it was packed at 6 a.m. in the morning. So having that ability for, especially younger kids in the summertime. when
Yeah,
their
just
parents
really
to be able to
making
get
sure
around to
it's open, and open when families really need it.
Council, we have a couple of people that have some questions online, is that correct? Correct. Okay. And I don't know that we're ready for a lot of public input just tonight because we're at ground zero right here. But if we can hold it to a couple tonight, Mr. Knight, that might be good. And we may not have answers for their questions, but
Well,
that's
and
fine.
while we're trying to set that up, just kudos to Felicia and Sheila for putting this together, because this exactly helps just kind of visualize it for me anyways, what our options might look
I
like.
couldn't get anyone to tell on anybody else, but I think they had a really good time.
Right.
Okay, Chris, are you online?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what's your question, please, sir?
Regarding the soccer facility being a part or not a part of this, I just wanted to know if you guys were aware that even in a COVID year, we've got about 600 kids playing soccer in Conway. That one tournament alone generates about $1.3 million in revenue. North Little Rock told us that in the last few years, with 4 tournaments canceled, they lost about $5 million in revenue from Burns Park being closed. And so just wanted to know if you guys were aware of that as these discussions were happening.
Yes, we are, Chris, and you may not have heard earlier when I was talking about the soccer. What I think the council is willing to do, and I can't speak for all of them, and we've not put it to a vote, but I think the council understands the economic impact that soccer will have in Conway. And I think even if we do not put it in on the swimming pool, we will do a 5-year loan on it, and that we could actually vote on that before we even move forward with the pool. I don't know that the council will be willing to do that because we have to do a lot of research there as well. But we are very aware of what an impact it would be for us. We've got 3 possible locations, one, of course, being the Farber Lane property, one being Central Landing, and the third one is the property that the Human Development Center is willing to, 60 acres there that they're willing to work with us on. So don't think that soccer's not front and center on this. You guys are. It just may be 2 separate. The funding may be done separately. Is that fair, council?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And I think that he raises a really good point, and that's why I was asking about, how many participants do we have in competitive swimming? And I knew soccer was gonna be a lot higher, and so we really
Right.
kind of have to look at, how many people will be served? What kind of programming can we do and offer?
And I know Mark and I talked about this just now. I think these programs need to be back under the city umbrella, not farmed out to different entities.
I would agree.
Because we're missing the boat on a lot of revenue
I would agree.
that we're not making, so.
Does that answer your question, Chris?
He's offline.
Okay.
Kimberly was our next,
Okay, Kimberly, are you up? Hello, Kimberly? Okay.
Bart, I have gotten just a few, Felicia did say that the operating months would be April through October is basically what Rogers does with their outside facility. And then I just got a comment from someone that just said that there are revenue opportunities for a competition pool as well, so.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Ms. Isbell.
And putting that, as Ron pointed out to me, over here, nearer the hotels and motels, where people would come in to free swimming, that would
Right.
be a big plus for them.
Council, y'all have any more questions for Ms. Isby or for myself? Well, this is our first step tonight, and for you folks that have joined us via Zoom, you have a group of folks here that are most dedicated completely to doing something really great for Conway in several areas. We are just starting, so be patient with us, but you will be hearing back from us. I think Miss Isby's ready to go, and you'll start hearing more and more about this. Hopefully, we can spin something up here in the very near future and bring it to the people. Is that fair, Miss Isby?
That is fair, yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
could we get our hands on Ms. Bryce's information as soon as she has it available?
Yes, I will. I'll call Jamie. I'll talk to Jamie tomorrow.
That'd be great. Thank
Could
you.
you get us a layout of the property over there at Central
Yes,
Landing too?
I can get you that. Yeah, I'll get those two things.
What we did before.
I got a
Yeah.
question for Miss Smith. Can you do aerobics in a 5-foot pool?
No.
Wait a minute, wait a minute.
And I will say, for any of you council members that want it, I do have the 2019 data for Bentonville that I'll be welcome to share with any of you.
Thank you for all this information, Ms. Isby. You did a good job. All right, council, let's take about 8 minutes and we'll start our council meeting. Thank you, everybody.
still work for us? He gone.
Good evening, everyone. We proceed each council meeting with a word of prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would like to, please feel free to join us. Would you bow, please? Father in heaven, we thank you for your goodness, your grace, your mercy, and your awesome power. Father, we pray for our decisions tonight, that they bring honor and glory and blessings to you. And Lord, we lift up Miss Isby's family, Miss Grace. We thank you for her homecoming, but we pray for the Isby family and decisions that they will have to make, and just your loving care around them. These things we pray in your name. Amen. Now call this meeting to order. Mr. Garrett, would you call roll, please?
Mr. Hawkins?
Here.
Mr. Grimes? Here. Mr. Pruitt? Here. Ms. Mel? Here. Mr. Ledbetter? Here. Ms. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Jones?
Here.
Ms. Isby?
Okay, you should have received copies of the city council minutes for May 11th.
Make a motion for approval as submitted.
Second.
I have a motion second to approve as submitted. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 8-0. Well, I'm having computer trouble here, imagine that. I do know that our first item on the agenda tonight is our monthly financial report, ending on April 30th, 2021, and we have Mr. Winningham online with us. Mr. Winningham.
Yes, sir. Can y'all hear me okay? Yes, sir. So this shouldn't take too long. Our operating funds took a hit in April. It was a 3 payroll month for us, so it was expensive in that regard. As far as the general fund goes, our sales tax was okay. It was up 1.9%. That's not a number we're used to seeing, but we're certainly glad it didn't go the other direction and fall below what we collected last year. But still, you'll see our bottom line was looking pretty good, and now we're looking at a negative there, a net expense for the year, but we should rebound pretty quick from that. The other operating funds are looking well, except for airport, and it just, it operates at a pretty small margin, and the 3 payroll month hit them there as well. And I thought I'd mention for those city council members that aren't on the A&P commission, and just anybody that's kind of curious how that revenue stream is going, since we're kind of, in the stages of bouncing back from the pandemic. It's really been up and down. It'll be, our A&P revenue will be up one month and down the next. So it's kind of been a roller coaster so far this year. But overall through May, it's up 4.5%.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Winningham?
Yeah, that concludes my comments.
I make a motion to approve the monthly financials.
I have a motion and a second to approve these monthly financials. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Passes 8-0. Thank you, Mr. Winningham.
Yes, sir.
All right. Next up, we have an Economic Development Committee, and we have a resolution to set a public hearing to discuss the vacating of an easement of Mayor Lane, Martin Road, and William J. Clark for the Conway Development Corporation. And this date has been changed to June 22nd, and Mr. Lacy said that will work fine with their time frame.
I make a motion for adoption of the resolution with that date change. Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt this resolution with the date change. Any further discussion? Would you like to say anything to this, James?
Sure, yes, this, again, this is very similar to the resolution that was passed last time. We just got a little ahead of ourselves in terms of having the legal descriptions ready for that. Essentially with this, this is to accommodate the relocation of Mayor Lane and part of William J. Clark Drive. It's also, it would end up being closing a portion of E.W. Martin Drive that is not currently used for a street.
Mayor,
I'm not exactly sure, I got an emailed question about this of all things, and I'm not really sure if it applies to number 1 or number 2. But the question was, and I guess maybe for the public hearing, but I'll forget about it by then, so let's answer it now. How will the closing of the built right-of-way along E.W. Martin, William J. Clark, and Mayor Lane affect traffic flow in the industrial park, as there are several large warehouse centers that utilize Mayor Lane as access to Dave Ward?
Essentially, we'll have the same connectivity. It's just some of the roads need to be relocated to accommodate the large use that we anticipate going in there.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
So instead of a straight road, we'll have a road that
Yeah,
have a little
instead of a
dog
straight
leg.
road, it'll be a
Gonna have a
road
little
that
dog
bows
leg.
out.
Yeah.
Dog leg. You got that. Thank you, James. Mr. Garrett.
This be resolution R 2140. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed.
Passes 8-0. Next up, we have a resolution to approve applying for the rural broadband grant with the Conway Corporation. I don't want, and Greg Dale from Conway Corporation is here to speak to this. Mr. Dale, are you online?
Yes, sir.
All right,
Can
Greg.
you hear me?
Yes, sir. You're up, sir.
Alrighty. Natalie Arnold with Conway Corporation has identified a grant opportunity to do a rural broadband study. And this is a state grant that's administered through UAMS. It is up to $75,000 for a case study and design for broadband. And Conway Corporation, by state law now, can serve broadband anywhere in the state. We're really not interested in that, but we are interested in being able to provide broadband in the immediate areas around Conway, which could help the growth of Conway. As you know, if somebody annexes, if we're already there, it'll be easier to have that territory. This grant goes to the county or city instead of to the utility like us. So Natalie has worked with Felicia to let the city apply for, but we would do the administrative work. There would be a little bit of administrative work from Felicia or her designee. And anyway, I can answer questions about it, hopefully.
I think if I understood, Felicia educated me on this. She said we're basically a pass-through for Conway Corporation.
I make a motion for adoption of the resolution.
I have a motion and a second to approve this resolution for approving, applying for the rural broadband grant with Conway Corporation. Any further discussion?
Can I ask James a quick question about
Yes,
this?
ma'am.
This would probably apply to areas within what we know as our extraterritorial jurisdiction. So it would kind of be close to the city limits, right? This broadband?
I'll be honest, I'm not
Okay.
sure.
Greg, can you answer that?
Yes, we are looking, right now, we're looking at three pieces of property, and one of those is out towards Rocky Gap area. We serve water out there anyway, and there's limited broadband in that area. And then up near the old city landfill in that area out towards Cadron, and basically south of the lake. So yes, they'd all be within our territorial jurisdiction.
Great.
There's nothing that would keep us from going further than that, but right now we're really just interested in areas that might someday soon be annexed to the city of Conway, and we would already be there. And the state has got some money coming along behind this. This grant doesn't actually extend the broadband. What it does is pays for a study. But there is some additional money, CARES Acts and other thing that has some broadband money in it that might be available to help offset some of the capital costs to get it out there.
Any other questions, council? Mr. Garrett.
This be resolution R 2141. All in favor, say aye. All opposed.
Passes 8-0. Thank you, Mr. Dale. Next on the agenda is community development. Mr. Hawkins? You're
Mayor,
up, sir.
did we miss number 2?
Let's see, you know what, we may have. Oh, it's part of the same thing, so what do we need to do, Mr. Garrett?
Well, this is for
Or
an
did we cover it?
easement.
Okay, let's go back, I'm sorry, let's go back to number 2. Thank you, Ms. Isby.
You're welcome.
Well, I had it as one and the same as well. All right. It's consideration to approve the right-of-way easement acquisition for Conway Corporation. Mr. Dell, I have you up speaking to that as well.
Yes, sir. Thank you. There's actually two easements that you've got, and one of them is on property that Conway Corporation operates, but it's still in the city name. And the other one is actually on the property that the city bought, I think, possibly for the Aquatic Center or whatever, out down on South German Lane, the Barber property. Both of those easements are in conjunction with work that we did for flood mitigation, where we took some above creek flow sewer lines and moved them and got them underneath the creek. The work's done. I hope you sign the easements.
I make a motion for approval.
We have a motion and a second to approve this right-of-way easement for acquisition for Conway Corporation. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed.
Passes 8-0. Thank you, Ms. Isby, for bringing that to my attention. Now, Mr. Hawkins, you're up.
We'll try it again, Mr. Mayor. First item on this portion of the agenda is an ordinance to approve transfer of a private club permit for Playa Azul Mexican Grill Incorporated to a different location, and for this, we have an ordinance to be read. It's ordinance 02157.
Make a motion to waive 3 readings.
I have a motion and a second to waive 3 readings. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Passes 8-0. Is the restaurant owner online with us? Okay, all right. Council, it's back to you. Any questions? Do you have anything on this, Mr. Hawkins, from the planning committee?
That's what I was just thinking.
Yeah. This is not one of our people that we have issue with. No.
Okay.
This is their 3rd time, though.
It's a charm.
That they've moved to a new location.
That's what I was thinking. I didn't want to do wrong already now. I was just going to let somebody else jump in.
I make a motion for adoption.
I have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett?
Mr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Mr. Grimes? Mr. Pruitt? Mr. Ledbetter?
No.
Miss Isby?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Miss Smith?
Yes.
Miss Mel?
Passes 7-1. Mr. Hawkins?
This item, Mr. Mayor, is a resolution to approve the lease agreement with Conway Aircraft Maintenance Services LLC, and to grant an application from the Arkansas Division of Aeronautics for the Conway Regional Airport. We have a resolution to be read for this item. I'm sorry, I'm off. It's resolution number R2142. This is for Conway Aircraft Maintenance Services.
And we have the airport director, Mr. Jack Bell, online. You're up, Jack.
I've got 2 projects to talk about tonight. This first one is to enter into a partnership with a local group that would like to put in a maintenance facility at our airport, which we badly need. It also allows us to apply for some grants with the Arkansas Division of Aeronautics. And this just allows us to enter into the agreement with them. What they will do is this group will pay the matching funds for the grant, which will be a few $100,000. That match will apply toward the rent for the hangar when they move into it. The hangar will belong to the city, and once they get that paid off, then they'll start paying their monthly rent of $2,600.
Make a motion for adoption of the resolution.
Have a motion and a second to approve this resolution, to approve a lease agreement with Conway Aircraft Maintenance Services Limited Liability Corporation to apply for the grant. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed.
Passes 8-0. Mr. Hawkins.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is an ordinance to accept the bid for construction of T-hangar building, or a T-hangar building at the Conway Regional Airport. And Mr. Bell, you're still with us. This ordinance, by the way, is ordinance 02158.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. What this, what this ordinance does is to award the low bid for the T-hangar building. It came in a little above what we anticipated. Of course, this time, right now, everything. We did, we're able to get them to amend their bid a little bit, got a few thousand off of it, about 45,000 off of it. So the final bid was $968,059 from Frank A. Rogers and Company Incorporated. This company has a lot of experience in the aeronautic industry. They've built several T-hangars around different parts, mainly in the northeast part of Arkansas. But I would like, of course, to go ahead and award this so we can get moving.
How many planes will this hold, Mr. Bell?
12. We need about 3 more of them, Andy.
I know, I don't doubt that a bit. I don't doubt that a bit. These are
Okay.
open, buildings?
No, they're enclosed.
Okay, thank you.
They're similar to well, they'll be just like the ones we have out there now, a few improvements.
Thank you.
Jack, what will that bring the total number of T-hangars to out there?
60 total. 12 of them up inside and the rest enclosed.
Thanks.
Make a motion to waive the 3 readings.
I have a motion, a second, to waive the 3 readings. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 8-0.
Make a motion for adoption in the emergency clause.
Have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance with the emergency clause. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
Mr. Ledbetter? Yes. Ms. Isby? Yes. Ms. Mel? Mr. Grimes? Mr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Pruitt? Mr. Jones? The emergency clause, Mr. Ledbetter?
Yes.
Ms. Isby? Ms. Mel? Mr. Grimes? Mr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Pruitt? Mr. Jones?
Both of those pass 8-0. Mr. Hawkins.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is an ordinance to approve 5-year financing for the construction of the T-hangars that we just talked about, Conway Regional Airport. And, Mr. Bell, this is ordinance 059, and the rent coming in for this is going to pay the 5-year note for us, isn't it?
No, sir.
Okay.
It'll pay the interest. This is not a high profit business, airport business. We anticipate a sale of some property, some additional airport property that will to the Conway Development Corporation or someone else that will pay for this. We will pay the interest annually.
There is a caveat to that, Mr. Hawkins. That property we're talking about selling would be the same property we're talking about possibly for soccer or aquatics. Just wanted y'all to know that.
Okay. Are we getting the cart before the horse then? I mean, just talking.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think Mr. Winningham's on there. Tell you what I can do. I will get an answer. Oh, Mr. Winningham,
Yes, sir, I'm still here.
would you step in here, please, sir? I think the question is, from what I'm understanding, and I think we all know this, is there's not a lot of profit in the airport business. And if we did not use the proceeds from the sale of the land at Central Landing, would we be able to do a 5-year financing on this without strapping ourselves? Is that fair?
No, sir, I don't think we would.
We would?
Would not.
Would not? Okay. Can you
Yeah,
break
our
it down?
ability to pay this loan back depends on the sale of that property
Okay,
without committing general funds to it.
okay.
So we would only have enough every year to pay the interest on the loan, nothing else, no principal, just interest on it. Is that correct?
Probably a little bit more than just the interest, but not enough to pay the,
Not enough.
principal.
Right, the plan for the structure of the note is to pay the interest annually and then pay the principal at the end once the land has been sold or at the time the land sells.
Yeah, and the land was, we were supposed to close on that, I think, the end of last year, with a right of first refusal, but we kicked that down the road another 12 months. Aaron, does that end in December of this year? So that right of first refusal is up in December of this year.
So does that blow up the idea about putting an aquatic center out there?
Well, that's the decision you guys are gonna have to make, we're gonna have to make, because that would be a hit to the general fund that we'd have to pay this loan back with, if we do not sell the land.
Can,
Put it out there on,
Yes, oh, yes. Yeah, we've got other locations. I just want y'all to be aware of where we were on the, land at Central Landing.
can we put the T hanger off until we make decisions about the
No,
aquatic center?
no, we're too far into that. We've already started and
We
got
are.
tied up with the, FAA and their grants.
I think we always have a choice.
We're pretty far down the road on this one.
Right on the road. And I just heard us say we got some 40 acres in the area that not much is selling right now over there.
Yeah, there's no, yeah. Yes, sir, go ahead, Aaron.
Wow.
I just wanted to provide a moment of clarity on that. So the 40 acres is the total option, of which I don't believe they will exercise the entirety of that option. So there is still going to be land in Central Landing that will more than likely be available.
Any idea how much?
Yeah, no, I know. We had the original thought of what they might exercise, and then the decision was made to give them an additional 12 months to delay that option. So I don't have the specifics in front of me. Obviously, I didn't anticipate the question, but I do think there's still a substantial portion of that land that will probably still be available for development. I just wanted to add that piece to it.
Wholly new to that. Wholly new to that.
Well,
Will they buy enough to cover this note though?
that was the original. I don't know the dollar amount on that piece of paper,
Right.
but it was in that ballpark. Yes, it would have been about a 1-for-1.
Due to the
How much is the
prices,
40?
due to the prices of construction being higher, I don't know that the sale of that is going to cover this entire note.
Right.
I
Yeah,
think
this
that's fair
was
to say.
6 months ago or so that
Yeah.
or 8 months ago we were talking about.
Right.
Yeah, I think at the time the option was 480,000. Those are off the top of my head. So, but it was close to what we thought the price of the T hanger was going to be at the time before the prices came in higher.
And if you don't sell the land, it just comes out of your own fund.
Yes.
Well, that part is where I step out of the conversation because I have no more knowledge to share with you. But
And here's the kicker. Mr. Grimes had an excellent point. Even if they do not exercise the option first buy, there's no guarantee that someone else is going to step up and say, hey, city, we'd like to buy that 40 acres. So back to you, Mr. Hawkins, and your question, we might be wise to stick with our Farber Lane property for our swimming because it's paid for. And then if something happens in the interim when we're working on this and it sells, or we somehow hit a jackpot somewhere and can use some money somewhere, then I think we need to go back looking at Central Landing. That's just my thought.
Mr. Bell, it doesn't sound like we're charging enough for rental space.
You're right. And we are gonna look at going up on that. We are pretty, right about average for comparable airports. But I think we will probably go up soon. They rent for $210 a month right now. We could probably go to $225 without a revolt, but not much more than that.
That's what I heard him say.
2,400 a month, what? Pretty long payoff period. Maybe the last hangar we need to build.
Yeah, I think that's pretty well in line with what's charged around the state. Is that fair, Mr. Bell?
We're in the Yeah, we're average or maybe a little bit above. There was a study done that just came out and I was surprised how low a lot of the rates were. And I haven't studied haven't completed looking over the study, but I think we're pretty much in line, but
So if we're in line with them, does that mean everyone else has a waiting list too?
everybody else has a waiting list. There are people that are wanting to buy airplanes but don't have a place to put them in Central Arkansas.
Okay.
We're pretty, how far into construction are we out there, Jack? I know that, the concrete work's been done.
Yeah, the FAA part has been done. They spent about $1 million and then we're in line to get the grant from the Arkansas Division of Aeronautics for $250,000.
Back up.
And this loan, plus some out of our.
FAA, yeah, that was for the,
$2 million?
$2 million total for this
We don't need to build any more.
hangar?
Yes,
For $200 a month?
that's why it was important for us to get the FAA loan.
But if we don't sell the thing, then instead of being out that $250,000 that we were supposed to get from the FAA, the loan, we're gonna be out $600,000 if we don't sell the land.
It's true.
Tyler, are there any other funding streams besides the general fund that could apply?
No, ma'am. No, it's, that would be it.
Okay.
Yeah, so the FAA, some of you may remember this from back when we built the new airport. The FAA does not build buildings; they only build the runway and the infrastructure on the ground. So the FAA grant is what we utilize to expand was it the apron, Jack? Did we expand the apron?
Yes.
expand the apron and also a taxiway. We put in a new taxiway.
So we've got concrete built up to the area where the new T hangar will go. So we're at the point now it's to actually build the building.
Correct.
I guess we were, or I was under the impression that that land was gonna sell, I guess,
I think we all were.
and to make decisions
Yeah,
down the road.
I think that was the plan too, but it hadn't, it's not sold yet. So, and the group that has the right to first option on it still wants to buy it. I just don't think that they're ready to do it. But they do know that they've got till December of this year, and then we'll move on our own. But I wanted y'all to know about how this possibly could affect the talk of the Aquatic Center out there. So, council, what do y'all want to do with moving forward? Y'all want to table this tonight? Jack, what would it do to you if we were to table this tonight?
Our bid is good for, I don't know, not very long. Yeah, it would mess our program up. And as you know, building materials are going up. In some cases, you get a quote is good for 48 hours, so.
Okay. No, it doesn't. I just thought it might give us a chance to maybe look at some other funding sources.
I don't think there's any other funding sources
I
out
don't
there.
think so. There is. Yeah.
So what's it gonna cost us if we don't do anything?
Jack, correct me on this. Part of the agreement for taking the FAA loan and the Arkansas Aeronautics loan was our agreement to finish it out. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. And FAA has some clout. They've got about $30 million invested in that airport, and we really don't want to make them angry.
Yeah, I agree
Yeah.
with that. No, we have not.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 8-0.
Make a motion for adoption.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
It's be ordinance 02159. Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Pruitt?
Reluctantly, yes.
Ms. Mel? Ms. Isby?
I'm going to abstain due to the bank relationship.
Mr. Hawkins?
I do Mr. Pruitt's reluctant yes.
Mr. Jones?
I concur with Mr. Hawkins, yes.
Mr. Ledbetter?
I'm with a reluctant yes.
Mr. Grimes?
Aye.
You wanted to be like.
That passes 7-1 with one of, 7-1 with one abstention. Thank you, Mr. Bell.
Thank you.
Mr. Hawkins.
Council, I will add, the airport does have some reserve funds, which we're probably gonna have to utilize to bridge the gap between what the loan provides and the aeronautics grant. But if we were to use all of their reserve funds to build that building, it would completely wipe out everything they built up over the last 4 or 5 years.
Jack, work on raising that rent.
We'll do it. Thank you very much.
When is does anybody know when the sale date is gonna be on the other land, or are we close to it?
They've got till December, Mr. Jones.
Okay, we got signs up, for sale, for rent.
For sale in December.
Mr. Hawkins.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is consideration to approve the removal of various items from inventory for the Transportation Department. And we have a no resolution. It's just a list. Want to get rid of some stuff.
Make a motion for the removal or disposal of the assets.
Second?
Have a motion and a second to approve the removal of various items from inventory from transportation. Do you have any questions for Mr. Finley? Mr. Garrett.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Passes 8-0. Mr. Hawkins.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is a resolution to enter into a real estate contract to acquire property located at 846 Donaghy Avenue for the Donaghy Phase 2 roadway project for the Transportation Department, and we have a resolution to be read for this. It's Resolution R 2143.
Make a motion for the adoption of the resolution.
Second?
Have a motion and a second to approve this resolution to enter in a real estate contract for 846 Donaghy Avenue for Phase 2 of the Donaghy roadway project. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett, I'm sorry, Ms. Mel.
I was gonna say that's close to that house.
Yeah, it is. Mr. Garrett.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Passes 8-0. Mr. Hawkins.
Mr. Mayor, at this point in time, I need to recuse myself because for 46 years, I have had a lady waiting on me every evening, and she is waiting on me tonight for our anniversary, and she is expecting me to be there on time, and I'm 5 minutes late, and if I'm 5 more minutes, y'all can go ahead and just call the coroner.
Well, congratulations on 46 years of marriage.
Can somebody handle this for me from
I'll
here?
cover it. Thank you, Mr. Hawkins.
Very much. I appreciate it. I will do that. Thank you very much, guys.
She deserves a crown.
Yeah, she deserves a lot more than that, I'll promise you.
Next up, we have an ordinance to rezone property located at 507 Bruce Street from C3 to PUD for the Planning and Development Department, and we have Mr. Walden and Mr. Bobby French who can speak to this.
Walden, I'm sorry we missed you.
Oh, well, we'll miss you too. All right.
Enjoy your night, Andy.
Yes, this is a property that is under consideration for 2 commercial lots. So the PUD has 2 commercial lots that are front up by Bruce Street, and then will permit up to a maximum of 30 residential units, which are intended to be duplexes with parking in the rear, with some requirements on the materials used for the actual units themselves, the prohibition on vinyl siding. With that, there's requirement for a 6-foot perimeter fence around the entirety of the property, as well as continuous evergreen sort of plantings along the back. That is in part, there is some neighbor opposition to the east. The property owners to the east have been opposed to this, and one of the things that they have stated as one of the reasons why they're opposed is for a masonry wall instead of that. This was looked at by the Planning Commission. I believe it had universal or a unanimous approval with that application, so that's all I have on that.
Help me real quick, sorry. help me, the property owners to the east, is that residential?
No. So this property is kind of wedged. It's currently commercial. There's commercial
Yeah, I
/
thought there was
industrial to the
commercial all
west,
around
and
it.
commercial to the east.
And they're concerned about the fencing?
Well, I think the concerns that have been raised are in regards to having residential there and how it might impact their property in the future.
That's a flop. Flip flop to the, residential is gonna hurt my commercial.
Yes, yeah, so with the conditions that we have, that the buildings would be brick, stone, hardy board, wood, or other materials, quality materials that would be approved by the planning director. So, no vinyl siding.
Council?
Second.
Have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 7-0.
I make a motion for the adoption of the ordinance,
and
I have it as O 2160.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance. Any further discussion?
Is there anybody online that wants to speak?
Bobby, were you wanting to say anything?
No, I'm good. Sounds like y'all fixing to vote for it. I don't want to talk to y'all out there.
All right, Mr. Garrett.
Mr. Pruitt? Mr. Ledbetter? Mr. Grimes?
Aye.
Ms. Mel? Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Isby?
That passes 7-0. Next up, we have an ordinance to rezone property located at 39,000 Oaks Circle from A1 to R1 for the planning and development partner. We have Mr. Walden and then Miss Mary. Miss Mary, I'm gonna let you pronounce that last name.
Ricky Daniels.
Okay, Ricky Daniels, okay. James?
Bobby's a smart man. I have been in meetings before where an applicant talked themselves from approval to disapproval real fast. So that's smart. Yes, they're going from A1 to R1. The chief difference in this particular case of why you have that, the A1 has a lot size requirement that's fairly large. So this is being done to accommodate a second lot. So they intend to do a lot split here, which would still be on septic and whatnot. It would still be compatible with the neighborhood. There were some questions from the neighbors, but not a lot of, I would say, any opposition to this item.
That's what I need.
And ma'am, did you have something to say? Okay, council's back to you.
Make a motion that we waive the 3 readings.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to waive 3 readings. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Passes 7-0.
Make a
Motion for adoption of the ordinance O 2161.
second.
Have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance. There's no further discussion. Mr. Garrett.
Mr. Grimes? Mr. Pruitt? Ms. Isby? Mr. Jones? Mr. Ledbetter? Ms. Mel? Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Passes 7-0. Next up, we have an ordinance to rezone 29.99 acres, that's almost 30 acres, along Bill Bell Lane, south of Farmer Lane, from A1 to R1 for the planning department. We have Mr. Walden and Mr. Shaw on board for this one. Mr. Walden.
Yes, this is to accommodate a new subdivision for Mr. Frank Shaw that he intends to submit an application for a preliminary plat on. We anticipate there being 40 to 50 lots on the property, so that's why it's being necessitated to be zoned to R1. We haven't received any comments from the public on this or any opposition.
Make a motion to waive 3 readings.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Passes 7-0.
Make a motion for adoption.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
The ordinance O 2162, Ms. Isby?
Yes.
Mr. Ledbetter? Mr. Grimes? Mr. Jones? Mr. Pruitt? Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Mel?
Passes 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Shaw.
Thank you.
That was easy, wasn't it, Frank?
The less said, the better tonight, I think.
Thank you a lot for not saying, anyway, thank you.
Next
Thank
up is
you.
ordinance to rezone property located at 1320 Lewis Ranch Road from C3 to MF3 for the planning and development department. Mr. Walden and I think Adam Harrison from Trinity Development are online.
Yes, so this is to accommodate a planned apartment complex that Mr. Rankin is intending to develop. We anticipate that the property could support up to 114 units. We don't think that it's going to be that many, but that's the maximum number. This will be there in Lewis Ranch, next to the Conway Corp substation that's out there. They're currently working with them on sort of road access and all of those issues. If this is approved, it will come back through development reviews so that the staff will take a look at it. We have not received any concerns, complaints regarding this rezoning at all.
Make a motion to waive the 3 readings.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 7-0.
Make a motion for the adoption of the ordinance 02160.
Thank you.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
Ms. Mel? Mr. Ledbetter?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Grimes? Mr. Pruitt? Mr. Jones? Ms. Isby?
Yes.
Passes 7-0. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you, sir.
Next
Thank you,
up, we have
Council.
an ordinance to rezone property located at 20 Bronny Lane from A1 to C2. And we have Mr. Walden and Mr. Bobby French on this one as well. Mr. Walden.
This item and the next item are both related. This is rezoning is being sought to accommodate a mini storage facility that is planned to go out there on Brawny Lane. It's currently zoned A1. It's right next to a floodplain. There's no real neighbors other than commercial in the area. With the conditional use permit that we'll get to in a second, we have a whole host of conditions that we've applied that are pretty standard to the other storage units, storage buildings, many storage facilities in the city and so we haven't had any opposition on this item either.
Make a motion to waive 3 readings. Second.
I have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes 7-0.
Make a motion for the adoption of the ordinance
Second.
as 2164.
I have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
Mr. Pruitt? Ms. Mel? Mr. Grimes? Mr. Ledbetter?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Jones? Ms. Isby?
Yes.
Passes 7-0. And we're back to Bronny Lane. Consideration to approve a conditional use permit to allow mini storage in C2 for property located at 20 Bronny Lane for the Planning and Development Department. Mr. Walden, Mr. French. Mr. Walden.
Yeah, basically what it provided earlier sums it up. This is just another item to accommodate that mini storage. So the conditional use permit, we have conditions like lighting and enhanced landscaping, all of those things to require that it become I'd say, protect it visually from the surrounding area.
Make a motion for the passage of the conditional use permit.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the conditional use permit to allow mini storage at C2 for property located at 20 Bronny Lane. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Passes 7-0. Next up, we have a consideration to modify conditional use permit number 1382 REV issued for property located at 1717 South Donaghy. We have Mr. Walden, Mr. David Hogue, who is attorney for Rick Harvey, and Rick Harvey of the Soul Food Cafe Mission. We're going to start with Mr. Walden.
Neither of those folks got online.
Okay, Mr. Walden.
Yes, sir. So this item started out as a code enforcement action. We were called out by, I believe, a neighboring property owner that had alleged that trees were being cut down, that there was paving that was going out there. When I went out to the site on March 10th, noticed that there were several new structures in excess of 3,000 square feet that had been built on the site, including outdoor toilets. Went back and checked with our permits department. None of that work had been permitted. When I checked and saw that there was a conditional use permit, saw, well, that would require an expansion of the use. Additionally, noticed that from what the condition was pre-development or not pre-development, but pre-occupation of the site in 2017 over on aerial imagery to what it currently looks like today, there was considerably more gravel on the site, so there were areas that were previously dirt that had been converted to gravel. by the way we treat that in the zoning code, that would be considered an expansion of a parking area, which is something that triggers development review. With this particular, at that point, we directed as sort of a means to remediate the issue, we advised Mr. Harvey that he needed to apply for a modification of the conditional use permit prior to seeking building permits, also that he needed to apply for development review approval to the site. Thus far, we have received a conditional use permit. Within that conditional use permit, there are conditions there that relate to paving of the site. That's in part related to fire concerns. However, at the Planning Commission, I think Planning Commission review at the Planning Commission meeting, there seemed to be some willingness or openness towards the idea of allowing gravel improvement. I think the primary concern with both the structures and the gravel on the site is, as it pertains to the gravel, making sure that any of those parking improvements that are changed, that it's done in a way that does not push drainage off on a neighboring property owners, doesn't create sort of more intense issues for any adjacent property. As it relates to the accessory structures and being permitted, a lot of that surrounds sort of the issue of making sure that they're properly anchored. These are pretty large, substantial accessory structures. We noticed that there's outdoor toilets out there, that there are outdoor toilets out there, and so we wanted to make sure that these structures are properly anchored, that proper privacy and codes are being followed as it relates to that. And so that's really one of the major concerns that we had as it relates.
Mr. Walters, I'm pretty confident I remember everything about this property and the problems we had in the past with the residential area out there and their concerns, their legitimate concerns. And I think this council, and I don't want to speak for this council because my memory's not as good as it used to be, but I think we agreed that the community out there and Soul Food Cafe came together and came to an agreement, but that agreement was with the conditions they had on there, and that was going to be their piece of property, and nothing was going to change from that point. And so my understanding now is they've changed the size of the parking lot, and they've added structures, and they've added outdoor toilets, and somebody had mentioned something about they're trying to open up a road to the back. Have you heard anything about that, a street in the back?
But that is something I've heard of. It's not
Nothing.
not
Okay.
confirmed.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was a rumor to me, and I said I don't know. I don't have it. But anyway, my concern is, and I know the Soul Food Cafe does a tremendous job in Conway. I understand that, and they help a lot of people in Faulkner County. But they have established themselves as not playing by the rules that are set forth, and so that's my 2 cents on it. Of course, this council has the vote, but I think Rick needs to play by the rules that was laid out in the agreement with that residential area out there and with this council.
And let me provide some context with this. So with the modified conditional use permit that was reviewed by Planning Commission, what they included within the entirety of that were the staff recommended sort of conditions. So it appended extra conditions onto it that basically says that they would need to go through development review for those structures, make sure that they're 10 feet apart, that they conform to the building codes and whatnot. So the approval of the modified permit, what that allows is them a route to get the structures that they have on site, the parking improvements. It allows a route for them to become legal, as long as they stay within the rules and apply for development review and go through building permit review. So it's.
Yeah, I understand. And this is just me, but to me, it looks like we're asking for forgiveness and not permission from their side. Absolutely. And I just really feel like we are not sticking with the residents of that subdivision out there if we allow them to do anything different. That's just me, council. Speak up.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
I remember when we went through this, and it was the same thing, not the same thing, but people they didn't want to comply to our rules. And we did everything we could to accommodate them. And here it is, they building all this and just doing what they want to do. At some point, it's got to stop, because there's people out there, and we talk to them. I talked to a lot of them to actually come to an agreement about this, and now we're just putting it right in their face, man. Something's got to be done. I don't know what, but that stuff should have never been out there.
What's up with the toilets? Why are there porta potties out there?
I wasn't able to determine, I just noticed in the planning commission report, it does indicate that there are toilets there. It appears they're behind some type of sheeting or something.
I know, but why? Why are they out there?
You know, I
I
would
can't
guess
answer that.
some parts of this, and I've not been out there to see, had to do with COVID restrictions, that people couldn't come inside anymore, you know, do the social distancing, do what they could do before, and so I know they were doing like drive-through with the food boxes and with other things, so.
I
could see that that's what they were thinking. They were responding to COVID restrictions, but I'm guessing.
Yeah, as far as I understand, several of the structures that they have out there are meant for distribution of food, and so part of the I guess restructuring of the lot is that they put in a pretty robust drive-through system there for people to come through. So.
Everybody's got to play by the rules, so
Yeah.
we give them leeway, we're gonna have to give everybody else leeway, and that's not fair. And I remember distinctly, Bart, when they came before about it and what the rules were.
It took a long time.
It
to
was
work
a
through it.
Given what we all,
process.
given what we all went through, I would have hoped that they realized they needed to do this the right way.
Yes.
And they obviously did not. And now I've actually just, real quick, I spoke with a neighbor today. She sent me an email, some thoughts that some of the neighbors had. I'll paraphrase some of this. One is, she says that often on their Tuesdays, they start the show at 5 a.m. with music and speakers, and that violates their 6 a.m. conditional use. And they've cut down trees on property that do not belong to them. And now this is her side of the story. And something to do with the toilets and the drainage, they're concerned about where that sewage is going. So the neighbors are concerned as well.
And that's there was we definitely had neighbors chat. We during the planning commission meeting, we review sort of the YouTube chat, and so there were several neighbors that were providing comments through the meeting.
Why are none of them on here now? David or Rick?
Yeah, I thought they were supposed to be on there tonight.
They were invited.
Yeah, I was told that they would both be on tonight.
So just let me make sure I understand, what I'm reading with these conditions is that if we find that anything does not meet or cannot be abated, they would have to remove it.
Correct, yeah.
Take it
So
down.
this, essentially, it would require them to seek building permits for what's been put out there. Obviously, the arrangement of those structures would be required to change, because if they're separate structures, then they would need to be 10 feet apart. So it basically require them to come through development review for the parking and, seek building permits to make sure all of this is legal.
But if we allow that, what's going to keep them from adding some more structures and saying, oh, let's just apply for another,
And this is really
To move this along,
disappointing.
I will go ahead and make a positive motion to approve this. And we can vote how we want to.
okay.
Do you think the condition needs to be added about the porta potties need to be removed? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
We're just making a positive motion. Have a motion and a second to modify the conditional use permit for the Soul Food Cafe.
Okay, so we haven't voted yet, so if we vote to not approve these conditions, they have to take everything back to the way it was and apply again?
So what that would require is the removal of the structures. With that, There's still the issue of the parking lot. So with the expansion, they would need to apply for development review approval. With that, they could seek a variance. That variance approval could provide allowance for it to remain gravel.
And that would give the residents time to speak, as well as Mr. Harvey and Mr. Hoag.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, we have a motion and a second to modify this conditional use permit. All in favor say aye. All opposed?
No.
It fails 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Walden. Yes, sir.
Can we get the code enforcement people out there to look over the stuff?
Yeah, they've been in the fire department.
Can they get cited?
So I would say with code enforcement, our first line is basically to allow them a way to remedy the particular issue. So what we provided as a remedy was to seek the proper permits and approval to do what they had done.
Okay, back again, can they be cited? Because, see, we went through this, you might not have been here then.
No, I wasn't.
And,
No.
This is just blatant right here, what they're doing.
Yeah, we will need to revisit what enforcement action next. I mean, with that, essentially, it would be related to the structures
And
would be the
Mr.
primary.
I'm sorry, James. Mr. Finkenbeiner might can give us an idea here. Mr. Jones?
Yeah, they could be cited.
Was anything out there, would it pass? I mean, and I don't know, you know?
Yeah, I'm not qualified to
Yeah,
answer
I'm not
that
either.
particular question.
So if code enforcement goes out there and we check everything and say, okay, like this structure's okay, but these three aren't.
We would need to have our building department go out with
Okay.
them.
Not only checking that, but checking what's been put out there without a permit.
Right. Well, and if they have cut down trees that belong to other people, those people need to be compensated.
Thank you, Mr. Walden. Thank you, Mr. Finkenbeiner. Next up, we have Public Service Committee, and first up, we have ordinance appropriating funds to repair property damage to Fifth Avenue Park from Parks and Recreation. Mr. Ibbotson, so we have some damage, sir.
Yes, sir. We had a person run into the maintenance building at Fifth Avenue Park,
saw the
and we've
pictures.
since repaired it. And we're just asking, we've received the insurance check for it, and we're just asking for it to be put back into our building and maintenance account.
Make a motion that we waive the 3 readings.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 7-0.
Make a motion for the adoption of the ordinance 02165.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
Mr. Pruitt? Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Mel? Ms. Isby? Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Grimes? Mr. Ledbetter?
Yes.
Passes 7-0. And Mr. Ibbotson, we have you up again. It's an ordinance appropriating funds to replace a vehicle for the Parks and Recreation Department. Mr. Ibbotson.
Yes, sir. We received funds for the insurance company to replace a 2017 Jeep Renegade, and we're just asking for those funds to be put into the A&P account for us to replace the vehicle.
Make a motion that we waive the 3 readings.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 7-0.
Make a motion for adoption of the ordinance 02166.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
Ms. Isby? Yes. Mr. Grimes? Ms. Mel? Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Ledbetter?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Pruitt?
Passes 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Ibbotson. Glad to see
Thank
you
you,
back.
sir. Thank you, sir.
Next up, we have Public Safety. We have an ordinance appropriating funds for Station 1 repairs for the fire department. Chief Winter, we have you on task for this.
Yes, Mayor, we received a check, a little over $54,000 to help with the fixing of Station 1 that we suffered last year during one of the storms that came through.
Make a motion we waive the 3 readings.
Have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 7-0.
Make a motion for the adoption of the ordinance O-2167.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett?
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Grimes? Mr. Pruitt? Ms. Mel? Ms. Isby? Mr. Ledbetter? Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Passes 7-0. And Chief Winter, we have you up again. Ordinance appropriating funds for truck repairs for the fire department.
Yes, sir. It's another insurance check, a little over $21,000 to repair engine 7.
Make a motion that we waive the 3 readings.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 7-0.
Make a motion for the adoption of the ordinance O-2168.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett?
Mr. Pruitt? Mr. Ledbetter? Mr. Grimes? Ms. Mel? Ms. Smith?
Here, yes.
Mr. Jones? Ms. Isby?
Passes 7-0. Council, I got one more little piece of business here, if y'all would. If it's entirely up to this council, if you would like to, in the month of June, July, and August, we can meet once a month. That would be the 4th Tuesday. I did speak to Mr. James Walden. He said that date would work well for the planning department, but it's entirely up to this group.
We've done it in the past, it's worked out great, and not as much city business, it seems like in the summer months.
All in favor who are going to one monthly meeting in June, July, and August, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 7-0. Okay. Hey, I got my pocket knife. Yes, sir. We're moved. We're adjourned. Thank you.